It's easy to scroll through the headlines and treat global conflict like entertainment. Another story, another explosion, another political twist. But we have to pause. We have to stop and reflect on what's really going on. Not just on the ground, but inside our hearts, and more importantly, in light of what Allah has taught us. When we look at what's unfolding, Israel, Iran, proxy battles, war looming on the horizon, it's not just a political game. It's a clash of interests, yes. A power struggle, yes. But more than anything, it's a tragic reflection of what happens when we chase dominance and forget the sacredness of human life. When states use people like pawns and call it strategy. When the oppressed are crushed and their cries become background noise. Let's talk honestly. Iran and Israel aren't just facing each other across some battlefield. They're fighting in shadows, through militias, through intelligence games, through influence. From Lebanon to Syria, from Gaza to Iraq, these nations are pulling strings and funding forces, all while pretending they're standing on moral high ground. But the Quran warns us about this kind of behavior. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ لَا تُفْسِدُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. And when it is said to them, do not spread corruption on the earth, they say, we are only reformers. Quran 2:11. Everyone claims they're on the side of truth. Everyone claims they're defending their people. But when children are buried under rubble, when families are torn apart, when refugees pile into tents year after year, who's really winning? And here's something even more painful. While these nations use religion as a banner, real taqwa is absent. Proxy wars are not new. But when Muslims allow themselves to be divided, manipulated, and consumed by nationalism, we lose sight of a much higher calling. We were supposed to be an ummah. We were supposed to rise above tribalism, sectarianism, and the worship of political flags. Instead, we're watching as our unity is turned into dust. Again. Now let's be clear. Injustice is not acceptable, no matter where it comes from. Whether it's the apartheid system enforced by the Israeli government or the authoritarianism embedded in the Iranian regime, oppression is oppression. Our loyalty isn't to nations. Our loyalty is to justice, to truth, to Allah. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu wattaqu wa inni lilwahi shuhara bil qisti, O you who believe, be persistently standing firm for Allah, witnesses in justice. The shadow of war isn't just cast over Gaza or the Golan Heights, it hangs over every one of us. Because as long as we keep reacting emotionally instead of understanding deeply, we'll keep repeating history. And history has shown us, when we leave the rope of Allah and cling to the ropes of politics, we fall. Every time. But here's the good news. The Quran also gives us clarity. Allah teaches us how to think, not just who to blame. He teaches us to make dua, yes, but also to stay awake, to care, to advocate, to speak for truth, even when it's unpopular, and to never forget that justice begins within. So don't just repost the news, don't just yell into your phone camera, educate yourself, raise your children with insight, build your communities on sincerity, pray with humility, because the battle outside will not be won unless the battle inside is. And maybe we can't stop missiles, but we can stop apathy. We can resist being numb. We can carry the weight of our ummah with more than emotion, with action, with intention, with reliance on Allah's justice. And that is how we begin to step out of the shadow of war. When you hear Israel versus Iran, what do you think of? A headline? A military standoff? Maybe some news coverage with maps and missiles? and pundits trying to predict the next escalation. But what we're witnessing is not just two countries throwing threats at each other. It's a complicated, dangerous, and long-standing proxy conflict that's been bleeding across the Muslim world, sometimes quietly, sometimes explosively. And beneath all the political slogans and religious language, innocent people are the ones who pay the price. We have to learn to see through the surface. This isn't just about national defense or ideological resistance. This is about power. This is about control. It's about who gets to shape the future of the Middle East, who gets to dominate the narrative, who gets to claim religious legitimacy while pursuing political supremacy. And when that's the goal, you can be sure that principles like justice, mercy, and even the value of human life get trampled. Take a step back and look at the region. When Israel sees Iranian-backed groups growing in strength near its borders, whether in Syria, Lebanon, or Gaza, it responds with strikes, surveillance, and pressure. Iran, on the other hand, sees itself as standing up to oppression, backing resistance movements. But these resistance narratives are not always about justice. They're about influence. Iran's reach into proxy militias like Hezbollah or armed groups in Iraq and Syria isn't just about defending the weak. It's also about projecting its power across the region under a religious flag. And Israel? Its policies aren't just about security. It's about maintaining dominance in a region where it sees growing challenges. It uses its military edge to control, deter, and intimidate. It builds alliances not based on moral clarity, but on shared interests. And often that means working with regimes that crush their own people, so long as they oppose Iran. So what's the result? A chessboard of destruction. Two powers clashing, but not directly. Instead, they're arming others to fight their battles. And who's caught in the middle? Civilians, families, refugees, entire communities who don't care about geopolitical games, who just want peace, safety, a chance to raise their kids without bombs falling from the sky. Let's be real. These aren't clean wars with clear sides. And as Muslims, we have to be more thoughtful than falling into sectarian traps. Because that's part of the plan. Divide the Ummah. Turn Sunni against Shia. Turn Arab against Persian. Feed the fire. So we stop seeing each other as brothers and sisters and start seeing each other as enemies. That's how you weaken a people. When they forget they're one body. And here's where the Quran forces us to think deeper. Allah didn't tell us to blindly support anyone just because they claim to resist injustice. وَلَا يَحْرِمَنْكُمْ شَنَآنُ قَوْمٍ أَلَّا تَعْدِلُوا وَاعْدِلُوا هُوَ أَقْرَبُ لِلتَّقْوَى. And do not let the hatred of a people lead you to be unjust. Be just. That is closer to taqwa. Quran 5:8 isab hare. So just because one side is opposing a wrong doesn't mean everything they do is right. And just because another claims security doesn't mean they get to occupy, destroy, and oppress. We have to stay rooted in the Quran, not in political camps. You'll notice something else too. None of these players, Israel, Iran, or their proxies, are truly accountable to the people they claim to protect. Decision makers sit in palaces or secure offices. They never hear the cries of the children in Gaza. They never walk through the rubble of Aleppo. They never sit with mothers who buried their sons after a drone strike. That's the reality of proxy wars. They're always clean for the ones in charge and always bloody for the ones on the ground. And it's not just a military battle. It's psychological too. The media spins, the narratives, the confusion. Who's right? Who's wrong? What's the truth? And sometimes we get so caught up in defending a side that we stop asking the real question. We stop seeing the gray. We stop thinking like believers and start acting like fans of a political team. But the Quran didn't come to make you pick a flag. It came to make you stand for truth, for humanity, for justice. And sometimes that means being uncomfortable. It means calling out oppression even when it comes from someone who quotes your scripture. It means protecting life even when it's politically inconvenient. So the next time you see the words Israel versus Iran, don't just scroll past. Don't just fall into reaction. Understand what's really happening. Understand who's benefiting and who's suffering. And understand what Allah expects from you, not as a politician, but as a person of conscience, a person of taqwa, a person who still believes that every innocent life is sacred. It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. Cause harm and then claim you're fixing things. Create chaos and then tell people this is for your own good. That pattern isn't new. It's ancient. And the Quran spoke about it clearly. وَإِذَا هِلَلَهَمْ لَا تُفْسِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ قَالُوا إِنْ وَمَّا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. When it is said to them, do not cause corruption on the earth, they say, we are only reformers. Quran 2:11. That verse wasn't revealed in a vacuum. It's a mirror. A mirror held up to every generation, every leadership, every movement that hides behind noble language to justify damaging actions. And today it's still relevant, maybe more than ever. Look around the world. Look at the conflicts. Israel claims it's defending itself, while it drops bombs on apartment buildings, hospitals, and refugee camps. Iran claims it's standing up for the oppressed, while it empowers militias that leave cities in ruins and civilians caught in crossfire. Everyone is waving their own flag of righteousness. Everyone is shouting about justice. But in the middle of all that noise, children are dying, families are torn apart, and truth becomes a casualty. The Quran teaches us to look beyond labels. Don't just trust someone because they say the right things. Don't be hypnotized by the word resistance or security. Ask what's actually happening on the ground. Ask who is suffering. Because real reform doesn't come through injustice. Real peace doesn't grow from oppression. You can't burn a house down and then say you're building a better one. And the scariest part is these people genuinely believe they're right. That's the deeper message of the verse. They're not pretending to fix things. They really think their actions are noble. They've convinced themselves that their cause is so pure, any method is justified. That bombing, spying, displacing, destabilizing, it's all part of a greater good. But what kind of good leaves bodies in the streets and orphans without homes? It's easy to condemn the obvious villains, but the Quran teaches a harder truth. Sometimes the danger comes from those who sincerely believe they're saving the world while they're tearing it apart. That's why spiritual clarity is so important. That's why you need a moral compass that doesn't sway with politics or public opinion. The scary thing about deception is that it's not always deliberate. Some people genuinely can't see the damage they cause. And when a nation, a regime, or a group is convinced that they're chosen, that they're righteous, that their cause is divine, they become dangerous. Because at that point, nothing will hold them back. They stop seeing the humanity of the people they harm. They stop questioning their actions. And anyone who disagrees becomes the enemy. We've seen this before. Pharaoh thought he was protecting Egypt. He thought killing babies was necessary for national security. Quran tells us his exact logic. In yakhafu an yubaddila dinakum, aw an yujira fil ardi dinakum, I fear he will change your religion or cause corruption in the land. Quran 40:26. That's what he said about Musa. P.S. Pharaoh called the Prophet of Allah the source of corruption. He painted his own genocide as righteousness. Sound familiar? That's the pattern we're watching repeat today. When leaders justify injustice with the language of peace, when governments use religion to authorize violence, when slogans replace sincerity, and when propaganda drowns out the cries of the oppressed. So where do we stand in all of this? It starts with waking up, not just emotionally, but intellectually and spiritually. We have to stop taking sides based on ethnicity, nationality, or political alliances. Our side is always with justice. Our loyalty is with truth. That means we might praise a group for standing against oppression in one situation and hold them accountable in another. That's not contradiction, that's principle. This is what it means to be a witness to the truth. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even when it doesn't fit in a hashtag. And especially when both sides are claiming to be right. Because the Quran didn't just give us stories. It gave us X-rays. Tools to see beneath the surface. And if we don't use them, we'll keep falling for the same deception. Again and again. People waving banners that say freedom while they trample it. People shouting about God while ignoring every value He revealed. So the next time someone justifies violence by saying, we're just trying to bring peace, remember the verse. Remember the warning. Not everyone who says they're fixing the world is telling the truth. And not every war is righteous, just because it's framed that way. You know, one of the most profound things the Quran teaches us is that not everyone who speaks in the name of peace actually wants peace. And not everyone who claims to be on the side of justice is truly just. Sometimes the loudest voices declaring righteousness are the very ones who are fueling corruption. That might sound harsh, but it's exactly what Allah warned us about early in the Quran ki aador ailor, not the very same people. So you see that if you declare war on someone or declare ada, dale, ailohim, damaidim ha, and when he described a certain kind of person who spreads destruction, then turns around and says, I'm only trying to set things right. وَإِذَا لَهُمْ لَا تُصِيبِ لَارْدِ كَلُونَ وَمَا نَحْنُ مُصْلِحُونَ. When it is said to them, do not spread corruption on the earth, they say, we are only reformers. You hear that and it hits you hard. Because it's not just about the past. It's not just about one group of people during the Prophet's time. This is a timeless reality. It's a warning about anyone, any nation, any leader, any movement that causes harm in the name of good, that destroys lives while pretending to protect them. Today, when we see major powers involved in conflict, especially when we talk about something like Israel and Iran, both sides make loud claims. One says, we are defending our people, our land, our rights. The other says, we are standing up for the oppressed. We are resisting injustice. And while those words sound noble, look at the outcomes. Look at what's left behind. Children dead, homes flattened, millions displaced, families separated, generations traumatized. If those are the fruits of your so-called righteousness, then something is wrong. Deeply wrong. It's very possible for someone to do the wrong thing while being completely convinced they're right. That's what makes this verse so scary. These people who say we are only reformers, they actually believe it. They're not lying in the way we usually think of lying. They've convinced themselves that whatever damage they're doing is somehow necessary, even beneficial. And that self-deception is far more dangerous than open evil. Because when you believe you're saving the world, you'll justify anything. You'll hurt anyone. You'll silence anyone. And you won't stop to ask if your methods align with the values you claim to stand for. That's exactly what we're seeing today. Governments and factions that unleash war, that back militias, that bomb cities, and then go on camera and say, we're restoring stability, or we're securing our future, or we're standing against tyranny. And all the while, human beings are reduced to numbers on a screen. Civilians, women, children, just collateral damage. Not martyrs, not victims, just footnotes in a press release. But the Quran doesn't look at things that way. Allah doesn't weigh things by slogans or military success. He looks at the cost. The blood spilled, the trust broken, the lies told in His name. And He calls that fasis, corruption. Even if the whole world applauds it,